Good day, folks. Today I want to talk about tying. And you will notice that in many of my videos, my horses aren't tied. Very seldom that I ever actually tie a horse. I was actually going to put the halter on and tie her up just for the heck of it, just to show you that she can be tied, but I just couldn't be bothered. It's actually pretty cool today. My hands are a little cold and just don't feel like playing around with that stuff. I don't have to, but uh, this is kind of inspired by article I just read that pretty much says something that I've said is that tying. The subject was about tying to saddle primarily, and how if you actually tie the horse, things can escalate and get worse. Now, I want to talk about why I don't tie. I very seldom ever tie a horse. Usually, it's just for convenience for me, for something, or to make other people feel a little better about things or whatever. There's very, very few situations in which I will actually tie a horse. Um, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't think it's necessary because if the horse is properly trained to the point where it can be tied safely, it probably doesn't need to be. I tend to saddle, groom, trim, anything that needs to be done. I don't tie for any of it because I teach the horse to say where I put it and stand still and not move when I'm trying to put the saddle on and that sort of thing. And if you actually have the horse tied because you have a problem with that, you're never going to be able to fix the problem because the horse is tied. It can't go anywhere. It can't move around. And that just kind of defeats the whole purpose in my mind. You can't do the proper training. And if your horse won't stand still, you probably shouldn't be putting a saddle on it in the first place. That's my theory. I think there's quite a few people that would probably agree to that. Now, years back, somebody was, noticing that I had several pictures doing things with my horses, and the horse wasn't tied in any of them. And they said, "Oh, nice, yeah, you don't. Nice that you can do that stuff, but too bad your horse can't tie because that way you can't take it anywhere." Well, the fact of the matter is, I can tie, but just because I can doesn't mean I have to. In fact, the fact that I can, I don't have to. Is basically what it amounts to. If I have to tie, no problem. I can tie my horses anytime I want. But the fact of the matter is, I don't have to. Now, one of the reasons that I don't is, like the article I was reading, it's actually a horseman in Texas wrote about it and talked. Give you a scenario how things can escalate if the horse is tied, and then a dog starts chasing the barn cat and runs under the horse while you're trying to saddle it up, and then the saddle shifts off because it's not tight yet, and all of a sudden the horse is just freaking out, and things go from bad to worse, and the whole situation just escalates because it was tied. Now, if I've actually had a similar situation occur where there was animals running around under my horse while I was saddling up, and she didn't even move, but then she wasn't tied either. And the reason I don't tie, now I want to talk about this, is because I think it's pretty important, is horses have survived for thousands of years because of their ability to flee. They're designed to run from things. And when you tie them up, you've taken away that ability to run away from danger or potential danger, as in their mind. And that just ups their stress level phenomenally right off the get-go. And if they can't get away from something that they perceive to be a threat, they're going to get pretty upset and worried about things. And so, things are going to go from, bad to worse in a real hurry if the horse is tied. It'll escalate. It has a snowball effect because you've taken away the horse's prime means of survival, which is running away. And if it can't do that, there's this fight or flight thing. If it can't flight, it's going to fight. And then you run the risk of either you or another horse or a dog or cat or whatever getting kicked, bit, struck at, that type of thing. Or the horse is going to just get really nervous, start jumping side to side. Next thing you know, it lands on top of you. And if you got it tied up, you're probably going to get squeezed into a fence or something in a small space. Where, whereas, I'm in the middle of an arena. If this horse wants to move, she's got lots of places to move. She doesn't feel threatened. She's pretty relaxed. She's pretty happy to be here. And, there's no constraint on her whatsoever. So if she does feel uncomfortable about something, she could move as far as she needs to feel comfortable. And in fact is that because she can move, she probably won't bother. If things go bad, she might take a step or two one direction or the other just to move away from something. But, like I said, I don't like tying. It just ups their stress level. It takes away their ability to flee. It makes the horse nervous right from the start. There's very, very few situations. I'm thinking back at all my videos. There's only a couple that I have a horse tied in. And one was actually to demonstrate that my horse actually can tie. Another one was I was working on a horse that wasn't mine. And it had an issue with tying, and after I'd been working with it for a few weeks, I tied it up just to show that it could be tied now. And I didn't do anything with the tying at that point. It was just, that's what happens if you work on all your basics and everything. Eventually, you don't, tying's not an issue, and for the convenience of others, to make them feel better or to keep the horse safe in certain situations, I will tie. But if I don't have to, I'm not going to, because it doesn't do any good. It actually is a recipe for disaster, and a lot of bad things can happen. You just up the stress levels of the horse. You increase your risk of getting injured, and even a minor situation can escalate quite quickly into something really bad. So that's my views on tying is if I don't have to, I'm not going to. And just because I don't doesn't mean my horses can't. It's just because I don't need to. That's, the way I look at it is if the horse is trained to the point where it can safely be tied, it probably doesn't need to be tied, which is why I don't tie. And besides, you can't fix a problem if they're tied up. Having a horse loose like this, if she takes the notion to move, I can, she can move, and then I can address that and fix it. If the horse is tied up, you can't fix that because it can't go anywhere. So it's a discretionary thing. I won't say never ever tie your horse up, but don't tie it if you don't have to. Like I said, I don't tie for tacking up. I don't tie for grooming. I don't tie for trimming. I don't tie for much of anything. And as you can see, this one doesn't even have a halter on it. I just brought her in from the pasture, and I didn't even tie. I put a lead on her to go catch her. So that's my view on tying. And if you have to do it, you have to do it. But if at all possible, avoid it, because it's better for you and it's better for the horse. Have a good day.